Hello, my name is Clay Clark. I'm the father of 5 kids. I've built several multi-million-dollar companies, and I also happen to be the host of the Thrive Time Show podcast. And throughout my career, as I built different businesses, I've had the opportunity to meet and to become friends with many great people, like Lin Wood and Roger Stone. And I felt like this year, as we're surrounded by a corrupt mainstream media that simply refuses to share the truth with you, I felt like our show needed to take kind of a pivot, and we needed to focus on getting the truth in the air everywhere. So when you go to the Thrive Time Show podcast, you're going to hear interviews with Patrick Byrne, the founder of Overstock.com, where you're going to find interviews with Joe Vaughn Pulitzer, the man who just showcased during the Georgia hearings that he could actually hack into the Dominion voting machines. This is the guy who invented the QR codes. However, many of you have asked consistently if we could have Lin Wood on the show more often. And so Lin and I have teamed up to host Fireside Chats, where we answer questions that are being asked by you, the listener. You're seeking truth, and on the Thrive Time Show, we're going to give it to you with these Fireside Chats. Thrive Nation, on today's Fireside Chat with Lin Wood, we do cover a lot of ground. I mean, Aaron Antis, I think you would agree, we ask Lin a lot of questions that Americans want to know the answers to.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, we ask him, how does he know that Jeffrey Epstein is alive? We ask him, what evidence do you have that Vice President Pence may be crooked? We talk about the betrayal in the White House of Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone. We talk about reasons to believe that the COVID-19 models were false. In fact, there's irrefutable proof that the COVID-19 models that said 2.2 million people would die are false. We talk about Sidney Powell's 270-page document, which showcases and demonstrates the irrefutable proof that the 2020 elections were fraudulent. We talk about the envelopes from George H.W. Bush's funeral that were passed out to the members of the deep state, including Vice President Pence. And we talk about the 100% effective COVID-19 treatments and therapies. However, Aaron, I want to get your take about what you took away most from today's Fireside Chat and interview with Lin Wood.
I would say when we started talking about Epstein, because I have heard Lin Wood in every single one of our Fireside Chats. I have never heard him say something he was so certain of as that. And he said he has very reliable sources on this. He goes into a little bit of depth on it, but I understand for his own protection why he can't give us everything. But oh my gosh, that was a blockbuster for me.
Thrive Nation, I would grab a pen and a pad as you listen to today's show. And first off, just write down my number. My phone number is 918-851-6920. 918-851-6920. And if you text me, I'll send you a link to today's show notes. And on those show notes, you're going to find irrefutable proof. Irrefutable proof right now, folks, that the 2020 election was the victim of mass-scale, industrial-level fraud. You're going to see Sidney Powell's 270-page report. I'm going to send you video footage from George H.W. Bush's funeral. I'm going to send you proof of the U.S. authorizing firing squads once again. I'm going to send you a link to President Donald J. Trump's executive order on imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in the U.S. election, a.k.a. he can take the stuff from the bad guys should they be caught interfering with our elections. I'm going to send you links to the 100% effective COVID-19 treatments and therapies, including budesonide and ivermectin. I'm going to send you irrefutable proof that the COVID-19 models that predicted 2.2 million Americans would die were nefariously false. I'm going to send you proof that the U.S. right now has strong penalties in place for people that commit treason. And Aaron, this is the season where we expose the people who are committing sedition and treason. All this and more on today's Fireside Chat and interview with Lin Wood. Lin Wood, welcome back to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Clay. It's always nice to hear your voice. You sound optimistic, and I like optimistic folks in these days.
I love these Fireside Chats, but I know millions of people love them more, I think more than you and I do, because you and I know a lot of this information, but a lot of our listeners are hearing this for the first time, and it's blowing their minds. And so I wanted to just recap for anybody who's just now tuning in for the first time. Election fraud. Lin, did it happen? How can you prove it?
Well, the short answer is yes. It most definitely happened, and it is being proven by an accumulation of evidence that is amassed every day, literally since November the 3rd, when Sidney Powell and a team of really talented young people,
Yep.
IT professionals, investigators, and a lot of people from We the People, thousands and thousands of emails with information, people that have given affidavits that they've witnessed illegality in person, experts who have looked at the numbers, crunched them, analyzed them objectively. They don't make sense. So there's a mountain of evidence. The problem is not finding it. It's actually pretty easy to find because the fraud was so obvious.
Yep.
The problem is trying to get that information out to the public because the mainstream media is not telling the public the truth. They're trying to divide us between the informed and the uninformed. So a lot of people in this country don't yet realize that this election was a fraud. And when they find out, when they wake up to the truth,
Yep.
it's going to change their attitudes about what happened and who's doing what they're doing to this country
Now,
and why.
If you're listening right now, again, I want to reset this. You can text me, 918-851-6920. That's my personal cell phone, 918-851-6920. And I will send you the 270-page report from your friend Sidney Powell that documents the widespread industrial-level fraud. But I want to explain it simply. Step one, the Canadian-owned Dominion vote-counting machines are used in the majority of states, okay? And Dominion shares office space with George Soros in Toronto, Canada. All right, this is a fact. This is a fact. Step two, Dominion gets its software from the Sequoia/Smartmatic company. I want everyone to know this. Smartmatic was founded by communist Venezuelans. And these are communist Venezuelans that built the software, and that's how Chavez came to power. Again, the software is called Sequoia, Smartmatic, and the hardware is called Dominion. It's a Canadian-owned company. They share office space with George Soros, and they use Chinese parts. Lin, the communists invested $400 million into Dominion right before the election. Can you share what that's all about? Because I think a lot of people are hearing that for the first time.
Well, it's true. Communist China, through UBS, a subsidiary, invested $400 million in Dominion just before the 2020 election, having already invested $200 million in Dominion a year or so before. Listen, for them, it's the best investment they've ever made because for $600 million, they are trying to buy control of the United States of America. And this is not the only country that has suffered this type of election fraud. The scheme that they came up with, Chavez down in Venezuela, that's been developed and used around the world to buy elections, both national elections and many down-ballot races. If you go back in the past decade, eventually one day, and study some of the, what we might say are absurd results, like how did Ilhar Oman win a seat, you're going to find that elections are purchased. It is a deal that is designed to buy power. To buy, instead of going and buying your country's natural resources, they just buy your whole country by buying the election. Communist China has taken over control of our country without firing a shot. But they want to physically control it because they want our land. They need our land to grow food. That's why they've been buying up so large amounts of Africa, South America. They own 30 million acres of American soil. We have been asleep at the switch.
If anybody is listening right now and you want proof of this, again, just text me, 918-851-6920. Now, again, step one, we all voted on the Canadian-owned Dominion vote counting machine. Step two, we used the Sequoia Smartmatic software. Step three, your votes were then sent to servers in Frankfurt, Germany. Step four, the votes can actually be switched They can be switched. Ladies and gentlemen, your votes can be switched. And if you don't believe me, text me and I'll send you irrefutable proof of this. Now, Lynn, let's talk about treason for a second. The word treason means it's described as betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign or to overthrow the government. Are you seeing acts of treason being committed right now from Governor Kemp, by Governor Kemp of Georgia and other American elected officials and non-elected officials?
Yes. Let me say this. I know I've been getting a lot of flack. You know, you get flack when you're over the target.
Right.
I've been getting a lot of flack because people are putting all over Twitter and social media that Lin Wood demands that Vice President Pence be shot in front of a firing squad. I didn't say anything like that. What I did say, I would say about any government official in this country. If you conspired with a foreign government in connection with the theft of our national election, that is an act of treason. And I didn't invent the penalty.
Yes.
The United States Department of Justice recognized several weeks ago the right of this country to execute people by firing squads. So if you stop and connect the dots and say, if someone conspired with a foreign country to steal our election, and that person has committed treason. And one of the penalties for treason, among others, is death by firing squad. So, do I believe that the governor and the lieutenant governor and the secretary of state and the attorney general of Georgia have committed treason? Yes, I do. Not because I'm speculating, but look at what they have done. More importantly, sometimes, look at what people haven't done. Why have they not sought to have the election in Georgia investigated?
Correct.
Not only do they not investigate it, they go out of their way to prevent an investigation. They don't want to give us the machines. They don't want to give us the paper ballots.
Yep.
He who has nothing to hide hides nothing. These people are hiding the truth from the Georgia public. Why? Because they've got something to hide. I believe they're hiding their own monetary gain and their involvement in a foreign country trying to steal our election. That's treason. And I feel like the proof is positive about these Georgia officials. What we've got right now in the state of Georgia is no law and order. We are in a state of lawlessness.
True.
Why do I say that? Because nobody in the government of Georgia is enforcing the law. Your right to vote is one of your fundamental rights as an American citizen. If you lose the right to select your leader, you've lost your country.
Now, Lynn,
So,
for people
in
out there,
Georgia, no one's enforcing the right and the laws on voting. That means we're lawless.
now, Lynn, for people out there that don't know this, one, you have a dog. You have several dogs. How many dogs do you have, Lynn?
I've got 4, although I do now have a 5th.
Oh,
I've had a beautiful little stray come up. That's a beagle and just a wonderful dog that somebody abandoned. And so now I've added a 5th, it looks like. But I've got 4 that stay in the house with me, and my new dog's outside in the kennel where my caretaker takes care of them.
well, great things are happening in America. You're finding new dogs, and also new patriots are standing up and stepping up to the plate. And we just interviewed Jovan Hutton Pulitzer the other day. This is the guy who invented the QR code. And during the Georgia hearing, I'll send everybody footage of this. If you're listening right now and you haven't seen it, just text me 918-851-6920, 918-851-6920. Jovan actually hacked into the election software, the actual hardware. He hacked into it during the hearing. So we know there's been treason. We know this, and we know on the United States government website, on the website, it reads, this is the penalty for treason, Lynn, and you did not make this up. It says, whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death. You didn't make that up. I mean, that's just stuff that's on the website. So let's talk about Pence for a second. Nice segue there. Vice President Pence, you tweeted this out about Vice President Pence on December 31st. You tweeted out, wow, Mike Pence announces on New Year's Eve that he no longer plans to pursue career in politics. Guess all those who said he is an egomaniac wolf in sheep's clothing focused on a run in 2024 were wrong. Good call, Mike. You're not fit to be president anyway. Then you went on to write out your New Year's wish list, if there was such a thing, and you said, too bad we don't get a New Year's wish list. If we did, I know 3 things I would want on my list. 1, Secretary Pompeo in charge of the Senate on 1/6/21 after Pence VP is arrested. 2, General Flynn to be appointed as vice president by the President Donald J. Trump. 3, 4 more Trump years. Sir, why should Vice President Pence be arrested?
Well, again, look at what he's not doing. He gives lip service to President Trump. Has he fought for the election to be investigated? Has he fought for the truth to be disclosed so that Donald Trump would remain president for 4 years? No. In fact, he's been leading the opposition to the idea that a lawsuit could compel him to do his duty and reject the electors presented from states where fraud occurred. Why would he not quickly say, I will never accept such a slate of electors?
Exactly.
He says listen, only God knows somebody's faith. So I don't judge him, but God didn't give me the ability to analyze things without wanting me, I believe, to use them. I look at Vice President Pence, who will never be president, by the way. I look at Pence, and I know he holds himself out to be a man of God. I know that a person that loves God would never even consider certifying a lie as being truth. So that puts my radar on full alert with Pence. I look at Pence's prior associations, his relationships with some of the so-called Republicans, the anti-Trumpers, the globalists, the people that are involved in Chinese money. And I'm afraid to say it, but it's the truth. We got to face the truth. I think Pence is dirty. I think Pence is involved in only Mike Pence being elected in 2024. So he's trying to curry the favor of all the moneyed Republicans, a lot of whom have ties to China, so that they'll support him and finance his run in 2024. Well, here's the bad news for Mr. Pence. When I said he wasn't going to be president, if, in fact, a false election is certified and Joe Biden or whoever's going to be there in his place, he's just a puppet, Kamala Harris or the person that's in the background, and I believe is Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. But if there is the certification in this country of a fraudulent election, that is your last election in America, because they're not going to waste the time and the money to stage another false election. They're going to simply tell you who's going to run the country next time around. That's why it's been so important for me to fight for the fact that we have to have an honest election so that we, the people, can decide on who will lead us. If we lose the right to select our leaders, we have become victims of a tyranny where we are told who will lead us. We are told what we can and can't do. We have lost our freedom. I don't believe Americans are going to let that happen.
Now, you are an attorney, which means that you understand if you were to get up there and make an accusation against somebody that's not accurate, that's false, you could lose your license to practice law. You could get sued. I mean, Lin, you're aware of all these things, right? You haven't lost your mind. People have accused you of losing your mind. And yet, you tweeted out the following. You said, I am fully aware of the onslaught of attacks being made against me based upon my revelations about Chief Justice Roberts. Before attacking me, maybe fair-minded people would first ask Justice Roberts to tell the truth. Or ask Jeffrey Epstein. He is alive. Now, after you hit send, 61,000 people shared that tweet. It's been loved by 136,000 people. And I think about 1/4 of America has questioned your sanity, while 3/4 of Americans are saying, yes, I know it. I know it. His death, a lot of people have looked it up, and his death doesn't make sense. It's a lot of It's very odd how he, quote unquote, died. We could get into the details of that. How do you know that Jeffrey Epstein is alive?
I have three reliable sources that say that is the truth.
Three.
And I have no reason to doubt them. And I have a significant amount of documentary evidence involving air flight travel, involving financial transactions in his account.
Mm-hmm.
They only add up to one thing. Old Jeffrey is still alive. Now, everybody wanted you to think that he committed suicide. But then there was another large body of people that didn't buy it. They thought he was murdered, right?
Right.
Either way, he's dead. So they want you to think he's dead, whether it's by suicide or murder. I'd be thinking more of the opposite. If they want you to believe he's dead, that means he's alive. Jeffrey Epstein, they don't want Jeffrey Epstein dead. The people that he has the ability to blackmail and control, they don't want to kill him. Why not? Because they don't know what his insurance policy is. They don't know that if they kill him, what it will trigger in terms of his revealing the videotapes and the things that he has on all of these people. So they'd rather keep him alive, keep him fat and happy somewhere where he continues to live a good life and he doesn't have any reason to tell the truth on all these people. And we're talking about some of the most powerful people in the world. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein has them on videotape. I believe much of it deals with pedophilia. And so they're not going to kill him and have it trigger his insurance policy where the information gets released. They're going to keep him alive. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Is there anything that, because I know some listeners are going, how can you prove it? Is there anything, because I have a link to ibtimes.com where there is evidence of his account, his financial accounts being used, although he is supposedly deceased. So somebody's using his money. Do you have any other evidence that people could look up or to verify what you're saying?
Can't recall as I sit here right now what his tail number is on his plane, but I'd track that plane. I'd track that tail number, and I'd find out when it burned up.
Got it.
It was after he allegedly died. I'd try to track where his plane went to after he allegedly died, whether in fact it flew to Antarctica, whether it flew down to Newfoundland.
Yep.
I'd take a look at some hard facts. If you do, they're going to support the proposition that he's alive. Now, are they going to be individually proof positive? No. Because the only proof positive he's going to have is if he steps out into a camera and says, "Hey, I'm Jeffrey Epstein and I'm alive." But in law, we build our cases every day on circumstantial evidence. If the circumstantial evidence sufficiently exists, it proves a fact that, while not proven by direct evidence, is proven by circumstantial evidence. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming that Jeffrey Epstein is alive. The direct evidence, like I said, you're going to have to show him in front of a camera, except I have what I believe is direct evidence from three reliable sources that tell me he's alive. In fact, I have information about where he is, but I'm not going to discuss it because I don't know what's being done about him.
Okay. Now,
so all I can tell you is I would not. I'm imperfect. I can say something on Twitter that turns out to be wrong. If I find out I'm wrong, I quickly try to correct it. But I know as a lawyer, as a defamation lawyer, that if my statement is true, I have a defense. If my statement turns out not to be accurate, as long as I had a reasonable basis to believe it to be true, I have a defense. The problem is if someone sues me, is it opens the door to full discovery. And once you open the door to discovery, you open the door to truth. I've listened to all this nonsense about Dominion threatening to sue people. Dominion's not going to sue anybody. They're threatening people to get the result that some people are giving them.
Right.
They stop talking. They get intimidated. They get afraid. They
like
don't want to
Newsmax.
get sued, and the idea of paying millions of dollars. They need to have the courage to step forward and continue to speak the truth. Dominion is not going to sue anybody because they're dirty.
Now, let's talk about this for a second. You tweeted out that on 5/13/2019, actor Isaac Cappy died after he forced himself off a bridge in Arizona. He was 42. His last post on Instagram was, "Beware the man that has nothing to lose, for he has nothing to protect. Isaac knew the lies. I know the key to his treasure trove of truth." Lin, what were you talking about?
I'm going to let that tweet speak for itself.
Okay, that's fair. Now,
let me just say this.
Yeah.
Let me just say this, that I think people ought to look into this actor. They ought to look into his life. He had a rough life. I think he said before he died, he talked about all the harm he had occurred and the people that he had caused to other people and the pain, and that he realized what he had done and he wanted to make it right. Study that gentleman's life. Study his death. He drove himself off a bridge, and then all of a sudden he walks back up on the road and he gets run over. And then within a matter of time, that highway and that intersection is referenced by Tom Hanks on Twitter as roadkill. I think Cappy knew a lot. I think he had the treasure trove. The treasure trove could be, for example, all the videos that Jeffrey Epstein took.
And his name is Isaac Cappy. If you're not familiar, it's ISAAC, Cappy, Kappy. Now let's talk about Bill Gates for a second. The models that said 2.2 million Americans might die, those models that were created by the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute and Neil Ferguson, those models were funded by Bill Gates. The PCR tests that are supposed to be calibrated at 17 to 20 cycles, aka amplifications, those are falsely and nefariously calibrated at 40 cycles, which means that when you take a PCR COVID-19 test, they're falsely calibrated. So it would be like your digital speedometer telling you you're driving 400 miles an hour when in fact you're driving 7 miles an hour. Those also have connections to Bill Gates. The company Election Guard that switches votes, that has Bill Gates ties. And then the vaccines that are filled with the luciferase technology. It's nanotechnology. The new COVID-19 vaccines are filled with RNA modifying technology. They're filled with fetal tissue. They're filled with this technology called luciferase. It's in the, and I'm going to cite everything here. So if you're listening on today's show notes, just text me 918-851-6920, 918-851-6920, and I'll send you all of this. I'll also send you Bill Gates' patent that he has. He got the patent number 060606. That's the patent number that Bill Gates has for these crazy RNA modifying luciferase nanotechnology fetal tissue filled vaccines. And Bill Gates, Lin, chose to have a great friendship apparently with Jeffrey Epstein. So after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted as being a pedophile, the world's most prolific pedophile, that's when Bill Gates became friends with Jeffrey Epstein. What was going on with Jeffrey Epstein and his bizarre relationship with Bill Gates?
Only Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein know, but I'm sure there's plenty of video evidence and other documentary evidence that would enlighten America on the nature of that relationship. What I try to do, Clay, is I try to get people to think for themselves. I ask questions. I want people to ask questions. What we've become, because the Chinese propaganda has dominated our news media, is that we are told something and we accept it almost blindly as true. We don't use our own critical analysis to think about whether it is true or not. So you ask yourself the question, after he's convicted by his admission of a pedophilia-related crime, why would Bill Gates, the philanthropist, fly on his private jet 6 times?
6 times. Why
do you see pictures of Bill Gates buddying up with all of Epstein and his friends? Well, when the flight logs came out, the Gates Foundation said Mr. Gates flew down for efforts for philanthropy to raise money for good. Who in the world goes out and wants to raise money from a known pedophile? And if you really are doing it, How many jet planes does Bill Gates have? Why did he have to fly on Epstein's plane?
True.
These aren't accusations. They are legitimate questions, questions that America ought to want answered, because it's Bill Gates who's leading the charge to have everybody scared to death of COVID so that everybody will go out and buy his vaccine, which is making him even more billions and billions of dollars. And then I would say take a look at what he believes in. Look at what he is committed to. Depopulation. He wants to reduce the number of the people in the working serving class to control us so the elitist can run the world. Same thing Communist China wants. Same things George Soros wants. So I think Bill Gates, who has no medical training, has no scientific background, I think the public ought to examine every aspect of his life, particularly so before they start taking stuff in their bodies that you don't know what it is, what impacts it will have on you. I wouldn't trust Bill Gates to take anything that Bill Gates had if he was within missile range of it. I think Bill Gates is evil. Look at how he conducts himself when he does an interview. I describe him quite accurately. He acts with his arms and hands. He looks like a damn serpent. Excuse my language.
He's absolutely gross. And I want everyone to know this. Bill Gates has donated over $870 million to Johns Hopkins University, over $18 million to the NIH, over $155 million to the CDC, over $53 million to the BBC, over $243 million to Oxford, over $280 million to the Imperial College London that made the models that said 2.2 million people might die, over $4.3 billion to the World Health Organization, over $3 billion to Gavin. Bill Gates is absolutely a corrupt individual. He has strong influence over the CDC. And Lynn, I'm putting it on the show notes so people that text me can get access to it. But now the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, that's largely controlled by Bill Gates, is recommending on the website, and folks, I will send you a link. It is recommending on the website that we as Americans implement Nazi-style concentration camps to keep us safe from COVID-19. Nazi-style forced isolation. What are your thoughts on that, Lynn?
COVID-19 was a biological weapon, but more a psychological biological weapon. And its intent was to control us, to have people do exactly what the government or the ruling authorities say they needed to do. Wear a mask, stay 6 feet away from your fellow neighbors, don't shake hands, limit the number of people that can come to your house, control when your businesses can be opened and closed, tell you how many people you can have in your church. It's a control mechanism. Let me ask you this, Clay. Did anybody have the flu this year?
You know, it's interesting. In Oklahoma, the mayor of Broken Arrow is one of my clients, and so he has access to all this data. And I will tell the folks out there, if you don't believe me, go research it yourself. In Oklahoma, the number of deaths is about the same as last year, Lynn, but the number of flu deaths has almost completely disappeared. The number of heart attack deaths has almost completely disappeared, and pneumonia has disappeared. So apparently COVID-19 cures all of those things. Apparently now in the year 2020, everybody in Oklahoma only dies of COVID-19.
I said to a friend the other day, I said, wow, this COVID was a real miracle. It eradicated the common cold.
Right. It's unbelievable. Everybody has their own story about it.
What I would suggest to your listeners is use your common sense.
Right.
COVID-19 was the flu.
Oh, and you know, it's so sad because once people have been tricked, it's really easy to trick somebody, but it's hard to convince them when they've been tricked. It's harder to convince them when they've been tricked. But if you're out there today and you sincerely do have the flu or COVID-19 or whatever you want to call it, and you're looking to not die, which I think a lot of our listeners are looking to not die, Dr. Richard Bartlett, Aaron, you know Dr. Richard Bartlett. You've met him.
I do.
He's one of our good friends, the former top medical advisor for the governor of Texas for 7 consecutive years, Governor Rick Perry of Texas. He's treated thousands of COVID-19 patients with 0 deaths using budesonide. And then ivermectin has caused, when you use ivermectin to treat COVID-19, there are also 0 deaths. So if you're looking for treatments, and Aaron, 0% is a low number.
As far as I know on the scale,
if you're looking at the math,
it's kind of at the bottom.
If you round it up there, it's still a low number. So again, if you're looking for the treatment that's resulted in 0 deaths, it's called ivermectin or budesonide. And if you text me to 918-851-6920, I will get that to you, 918-851-6920. Now, I want to ask you about this. The White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, has apparently been obsessed with blocking any alternative treatment for COVID-19 that is not related to Big Pharma. So if you want budesonide, which, by the way, if you don't have insurance, budesonide is $237 or less. And there's a generic brand called Pulmicort. Or if you take ivermectin or Oleander 4X, these are all effective COVID-19 treatments. But they all get blocked by the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. What is going on with the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows?
Well, I tweeted some information about that. There's a law that was that Mark Meadows headed up getting passed that dealt with Big Pharma. And a position is created in that law where someone basically is the person for the government running the connections with Big Pharma. That would be a pretty big-time job, wouldn't it? I believe Mark Meadows is knee-deep in Big Pharma. I think he's wed to them. I think if you start looking at his connections, you'll find connections with Bill Gates, with Moderna, with other key players in Big Pharma. So, yeah, Mark Meadows is going to try to block access to the public, knowing that there are very effective and very reasonably cost treatments. That loses billions of dollars in the pockets of Big Pharma. I think Mark Meadows is in the back pocket of Big Pharma. That's why he's not fighting for Donald Trump. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Donald Trump is suffering the same types of dishonesty and disloyalty and conspiracy against him that were suffered by Abraham Lincoln. History repeats itself. Mark Meadows is trying to block access not only of information about treatments for COVID, he's also trying to block access to people that are telling the president the truth about the election fraud. Why does Mark Meadows want to block discussions between Sidney Powell and President Trump? Why does Mark Meadows want to block discussions between General Mike Flynn and Donald Trump? Mark Meadows has got his own agenda. He doesn't care about President Trump. He doesn't care about the freedom of Americans. Mark Meadows only cares about Mark Meadows and his own pocketbook and his own desire to have power. He's not a wealthy man, but he likes to walk among the wealthy, and I think he aspires one day to be one of them. I can tell you one thing, it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to see the kingdom of God. Mark Meadows is all about money. That tells me all I need to know.
Now, Mark Meadows, for people out there that don't know, Patrick Byrne, the founder of Overstock.com, was in a meeting with President Trump, Mark Meadows, the White House, President Trump's counsel, Pat Cipollone, your friend, Sidney Powell, General Flynn. And apparently Mark Meadows was insubordinate. He wouldn't respect the president, refused to do what the president wanted him to do. And this is the chief of staff. Pat Cipollone wouldn't do what the president wanted him to do. And so I want you, Lynn, if you can, encourage our listeners out there, because we know there's a lot of betrayal going on within the White House, but there is reason for positivity. We now know about the executive order from 2018. We know that the executive order, again, it's called the Executive Order on Imposing Certain Sanctions in the Event of Foreign Interference in the United States Election. We know that President Trump signed this document on September 12th, 2018, which allows him to take the stuff of anybody found tampering with our elections. We know President Trump on November 9th appointed Christopher C. Miller to become the acting Secretary of Defense. And we know that Ezra Cohen now is his right-hand man, and these guys are fiercely loyal to the president. We know that in his office, he's brought in Sidney Powell. He's brought in General Flynn and others to tell him the truth. Give us some positivity, Lynn. How does this all play out?
I like to put it in simple terms. Trump's going to trump them all. I believe that Donald Trump was aware of the fraud that was going to take place in the 2020 election. I think he caught him red-handed. I think he's been endeavoring through a lot of different folks to get the public informed, to kind of set the table for when the news would break. So Donald Trump also loves this country. He loves the people. He knows that the forces that are trying to take over this country don't care about the election result. They just want power. So what else do they have in store for us? I think there's potential for violence in the streets. I think President Trump is ready for it. I think there's the potential for foreign countries to send people into this country. I think President Trump has our military ready for it. I believe that as the days unfold, people are going to see things happen. They're going to say, well, Trump's trying to take over the country. No, he's not. He's trying to save it.
Amen.
What he's going to be doing is he's going to be doing whatever is necessary to protect and defend the United States of America from a foreign enemy, sometimes both external and internal. That's why I believe that Donald Trump will go down in history as one of the great presidents worthy of being placed on Mount Rushmore with Jefferson and Washington and Lincoln. Donald Trump is, in fact, going to drain the swamp.
Yes.
I don't know that the president knew that the swamp also had infiltrated and was all over the White House, but he's learning who's with him and who's not. And the people that are not with Donald Trump are not with America. They are not people that love freedom. They are not people that love honest elections. They are people that just want power and money. Donald Trump is separating the wheat from the chaff. When he's ready, he will announce what he's going to announce to the American public. Some people will be shocked because they've divided us between the informed and the uninformed. But I believe that in due time, Americans will realize what's been done to us. They'll wake up and they'll unite as we've always done in the past to defeat a common foe, to defeat the forces of evil that seek tyranny over freedom. God created this nation. God gave us the birthright of freedom. I do not believe that God is going to allow America to become a communistic state, because if that happens, Clay, then America, which is the shining city on the hill, that has the shines the light of freedom around the world.
Yep.
If that light is turned off, then America has lost its leadership, and people all over the world who cry out for freedom have lost their hope. I believe that what's going to happen is that God is going to turn that light on even brighter, that he's going to keep hope alive, that he's going to keep America free, so that other people around the world will know that if you fight for freedom, if you have the courage to stand up to tyranny, that there is in fact hope that you will prevail. Look at some of the countries that have overcome tyranny.
Yep.
To reestablish conservative governments by the people. There's a move in the world for freedom. That's why they're trying to crush freedom in the United States, because they don't want us to set the example. They don't want us to be the role model to the world, but they're going to fail. Look around, and Donald Trump, he sees what I see and you see. Hundreds of millions of Americans, or
Yes.
tens of millions of Americans, maybe 85 million that voted for him in November, and I suggest many million more who have come to believe in him since November the 3rd.
Yep.
He has the support of the American public. It's not just some support here and there. He has a battle army of support in this country. They're ready to go to war with him. They're ready to fight for freedom.
Yep.
The people that tried to take us over forgot about our history. They tried to erase our history. They tried to tear down our statues, change the names of our military bases. They want us to forget about our history. They're going to lose, because it is the very history they want us to forget that is the history that will prevail once again in defeating tyranny. Americans will never allow this country to be run by a communist. They will never allow anybody to run this country that takes away their freedom. Stop and think about it. You have constitutional rights, rights that are granted in our Constitution, but are derived from God Almighty, your human rights. You're not allowed to be told what to wear. You can't tell somebody who they can visit with and who they can't. You can't tell somebody how far they stand away from each other.
Yep.
These are fundamental constitutional rights. And let me tell you, the last time I looked, I have never seen an exception to your constitutional rights. There is no provision that says, well, you got the right of free speech and the right of freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, unless there's a COVID emergency. There's no exception to our Bill of Rights. They can try to scare you. Governors can try to say you got to do this and you got to do that. Ignore them. Engage in nonviolent civil disobedience. Stand up for your rights. Tell him to take his mask and do whatever he wants to with it. You're not going to be forced to wear it.
Now, Lin,
if you want to wear one, wear one.
Lin,
but it's your right to decide.
Lin, I got to ask you this, because this is the problem we have here. We have some people listening right now who are sweet, rule-following people, Christian people, kind people.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to do the right thing. You know what I mean, Lin? And they know. I've talked to these people. They say, wearing a mask is stupid. A lot of our listeners, by the way, if you're listening right now and you don't have the proof that wearing a mask causes you to get sick, it causes healthy people to get sick. If you don't have evidence of that, text me, 918-851-6920, and I will send you 100% irrefutable proof that wearing a mask causes healthy people to become sick. It's obvious, but Dr. Jim Meehan wrote a massive report, and many other doctors. We have Danish studies. We have case studies. The point is, okay, I'll send you proof, folks, that wearing a mask is not healthy for you. Everybody out there knows that. But for the rule followers, what would you tell them? These people, they just don't want to break the rules. They know standing 6 feet apart doesn't make any sense. They know it doesn't make any sense to not visit their grandma. They know it doesn't make any sense to wear a mask, but they don't want to break the rules. What would you say to them?
How far are they willing to go? How many rules are they willing to live up to without complaint?
Yeah.
Listen, people say, well, man, if I don't wear the mask, they'll arrest me or give me a citation. Okay? So you don't want to go to the trouble. What you're really saying is you're not willing to take a risk. You're not willing to go to the trouble to stand up for your fundamental rights.
Yep.
If it's the mask today, what's it going to be tomorrow? Look at what's happened to people in communist countries. Look at what's happened to the people. They're oppressed. They live and die under the rule of the tyranny that reigns upon them. Look at the millions of Chinese people crying out for freedom. But they're oppressed by a small number of communist China party members.
Yep.
So yeah, it may be convenient to just say, put on the mask. I've worn a mask twice since this all started. Once for 10 minutes when my doctor said I had to put it on for an examination. Went down the hall to my other doctor and I said, do I need to put on this mask? And he said, no, take that thing off. And then I had to put one on to go inside to vote. So I made the choice. I'll take it here. You know, I'll make the trade-off. Nobody's going to make me wear a mask unless I choose to wear it. That's a fundamental human right. You can't tell me to do that. And if you let them get away with one thing, what are they going to get you to do next?
Now, Lin,
what's going to come after that? At some point in time, you're going to all of a sudden wake up and say, you know what? I should have fought that mask requirement because now look at what's happened to me. So everybody's got to make an individual choice on how far they're willing to go to fight and stand up for their freedoms. I would say, very simply, they can't arrest all of us, can they? So if 10,000 people show up and they don't wear masks,
yep,
you think they're going to arrest 10,000 people? No, they're not. But live by the example of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was willing to go to jail. He engaged in nonviolent civil disobedience.
Yep.
It took a while. He suffered a lot. But at the end of the day, he won the battle for civil rights so that people could finally be treated equally and not discriminated against based on the color of their skin. Some things are worth fighting and dying for. The signers of the Declaration of Independence said that they pledged mutually to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor.
Yep.
I took that same pledge a few months ago on Twitter. Many other people signed up and said, I'm with you, because that's what it's going to take. My life's been threatened. I'm not worried about it. I'm fearless. My fortune, well, I hadn't made any money in a few months, and I've spent a lot of money to try to do things to get research and investigations done, so sacrifice my money. My sacred honor, I have 43 years of practicing law. Some of the things that are being said about me today are vile, and they're lies. So they've tarnished my sacred honor, but I don't care. If I have to die, go broke, and be besmirched, if I do it for the cause of freedom,
Lin,
then I'll stand in the ranks of the people that signed the Declaration of Independence. 56, I believe, signed it. Many of them died. Many of them lost their fortunes. But they gave this country for generations to come the freedom that we were given as our birthright. I admire and respect those heroes. They were men of courage. And there needs to be, and I believe there are in this country today, people, men and women alike, that are just as courageous, that love freedom just as much, that will sacrifice their very lives so that their children and their children's children can remain free. That's the battle we face right now. It's time to wake up and fight for your freedom, not just for yourself, but for other people around you and for generations to come after you.
Lin, on a previous Fireside chat, our third Fireside chat, you referenced a lot of the deep state and specifically people who attended the George H.W. Bush funeral, who all received letters that they didn't seem to be too happy about. And we have a video link for all the listeners that want to get access to that. And as we start discovering who's on the deep state, who's on the team deep state, we discover there's a lot of people in elected offices that are part of the deep state. Lin, when you start to see these arrests happen and then these indictments begin, what happens when you arrest a governor and maybe a lieutenant governor? When you arrest, the Secretary of State of Georgia and the governor, what happens with all these arrests? Where do you take these people and how do you fill their seats?
Well, again, I don't represent the president, and I'm not an advisor to the president, so I don't know what the president's thinking is, but I know that Donald Trump is a man of God. I believe he found God after he became president. I know that I've been told that he told his spiritual advisor, I believe Paula White, that he hoped to be remembered as the president who prayed the most in the White House. That tell you all you need to know about Donald Trump. So what's going to happen? I think our court system is corrupt. When I say that the Chinese and communists have taken us over without firing a shot, they've infiltrated our court system at every level, our government at every level, our businesses at every level, our civic and community organizations at every level. So what do I believe? We have to go and look for justice until we can get our system cleaned up. We have to look for justice from the one group of people that we trust. Who do you trust more than any group in this world right now? You trust the men and women that put their lives on the line to keep us free. You trust the members of the military. I think that many of these people will have to face military tribunals. I think we may have to have some military leaders come in and govern our states until they can reestablish officials that are duly and honestly elected by the people. But we trust our military, don't we? We trust them with our very lives. I live in a section of the state of South Carolina where it's near 2 Air Force bases. I hear the sounds of freedom flying over me every day.
Lin, I want to respect your time, and we have a few people in the studio that wanted to ask you some questions. And I know a lot of people listening to this are saying, how come I'm not hearing this on the mainstream media, Clay? How come, Lin, I'm not hearing this in the mainstream media? Well, again, folks, 90% of the media is controlled by just 6 organizations. I'm putting them on today's show notes. That's National Amusements. That's Disney. That's Time Warner. That's Comcast. That's News Corp. And that's Sony. They control 90% of the mainstream media, just 6 companies. Aaron Antis, you run Oklahoma's largest home building company and the largest home building company in the studio here. So what question would you have for Lin Wood, sir?
Lin, great to talk to you again, sir. Thank you for your patriotism. Thank you for your boldness. And my question for you today is, how do you see the timeline from September 6th through September 20th What do you see playing out? I mean, I know you have to speculate a little bit, but what do you see January 6th or January 20th? How do you see that playing out?
I think my dog just told me the answer.
Oh yeah.
I think she's telling you to get ready to get up, bark, and fight.
Oh,
now,
I love
it. The fact of the matter is, I believe that you're going to see events unfold at a fairly rapid pace. January 6th is not a date in concrete.
Right.
If necessary, it can be changed. But I believe that when you go back, if I can, Clay, when you talked about the George Bush funeral.
Oh, yeah.
And the people that received the envelopes. If your video shows anything, I hope it shows the expression of Jeb Bush when he saw what was on the
yeah.
He didn't want that envelope.
I've seen it.
I think it'll show Jimmy Carter looking around feeling like he'd been left out because he didn't get one.
Yeah, he was confused. I can't say the video did show that Joe Biden, his family, they dropped the envelope, which I would count. I would count on the Bidens dropping the envelope. So he scrambles around, he's looking for it, and Jimmy Carter's going, "How come I don't have one of these? What's going on?"
Yeah, it was weird.
I'll tell you who did get one. Mike Pence and his wife.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Hillary.
And it wasn't an invitation to a gala. People seemed very upset when they got those letters. So, I mean, the deep state, Lin, is being exposed. Timeline-wise, I mean, I'm feeling the president has asked us all to come to D.C. on January 6th. I know I'll be speaking there. General Flynn is speaking there. Roger Stone is speaking there. There's about 40 of us patriots that are all speaking there. And I can just tell you, the president has a big announcement for us. Lin, do you have any idea what it's going to be?
I don't know. I don't know what it will be. I don't know if January 6th will go according to plan or what. The time will tell as we draw closer. But back to the question, and I got sidetracked because I wanted to make the point about Pence. Either Mike Pence is going to follow the law and reject these fraudulent electors, or I don't believe Mike Pence is going to be sitting there in charge of the Senate that day. Because if he's removed from office, or if he resigns from his office, the person that will make that decision under the secession laws of our country is the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo is a patriot. So what could happen? Pence could do the right thing.
Please.
If Pence doesn't do the right thing, I think Mike Pompeo could do the right thing. So that you have a very strong probability that on January the 6th, the vote will be certified for Donald Trump because he won the election by a massive landslide.
Yes, he did.
The question, though, is not necessarily what's going to happen on January the 6th, but the question is who's going to be inaugurated on January the 20th. That's going to be Donald Trump. But I would point out one thing. One time in our history, they had to move the inauguration by 30 or so days. It's not without precedent. It was done by Abraham Lincoln so that the inauguration could occur after the country had been brought back to law and order and the right president was in fact inaugurated. I've said from day one, Donald Trump will serve 4 more years as president because it's the truth. He was elected by the people. At the end of the day, you can talk about the court systems. You can talk about the vice president, Pence, or Pompeo, if he's in that role. You can talk about the Constitution. Will it be followed? Who's going to determine who's the president? It's going to be determined by we, the people. Study the Constitution. It says very clearly that all power resides in the people. We derived our power from Almighty God. Government doesn't tell us what to do. Our Constitution restricts what government can tell us to do or not do. We found our freedom and fought it against the King of England because he wanted to tell us what to do without representation. We made a decision in our founding fathers, who were inspired by Almighty God, to set up a government so that nobody could do to us again what the King of England had done to us that led to the Revolutionary War. So at the end of the day, We, the people, will decide who's president. Not some communist voting machine, not a bunch of rich people trying to get richer for their own agendas, not people like Bill Gates that want to try to kill us slowly by surely with vaccines. We, the people, will determine our own destiny, and we, the people, will make sure that the person that we, the people, elected serves as president. That person is going to be Donald J. Trump. He won probably over 85 million votes.
Yes.
410 electoral votes.
Yes.
The people are not going to be denied of their leader, and the people that think they can somehow force us into something otherwise, or scare us into something otherwise, or buy us off into something otherwise, they got a long, hard lesson to learn soon. They forgot who they were dealing with. They were dealing with the American people, people that love freedom.
Lin, if people are listening out there, every time you mention Bill Gates, I want to throw out another Bill Gates disturbing fact. He's currently trying to block out the sun's rays. Bill Gates is trying to block the sun's rays. That's his newest project. It's to dim the sun's rays. If you don't believe me, text me 918-851-6920. 918-851-6920. I can send you proof of that. Lin, we have time for three final questions. I want to respect your time. My wife of 20-plus years, Lin, she's here back in the studio. She's a great American mom, and I know she has a question for you on behalf of Team Mom and Team America. Vanessa, what question do you have for Lin Wood?
No, basically, I was just, so much information coming up with this Jeffrey Epstein, being alive. And it sounded like from your answer that I think I'm processing it correctly, that you feel like he's maybe in the hands of the enemy, or do we think there's a possibility that the good guys have him?
Are you holding him hostage, Lin? Are you holding Jeffrey Epstein hostage?
I don't know if you have any insight on that, but gosh, man, getting a hold of all that information would be a great asset to our side.
Well, I'm not holding Jeffrey Epstein hostage. I wouldn't want to be within missile range of Jeffrey Epstein. He's a pedophile.
Good answer.
And I think pedophilia is one of the most horrendous crimes that any individual could commit. They take young children, they abuse them for sexual purposes, and they ruin their lives. Yeah. At least when somebody murders you, they take you out of your misery. Right. But if you sexually abuse a young child, you have caused them to live a life of pain and misery. Yep. I think there's a special place in hell for people who commit pedophilia. Jeffrey Epstein, is he in the hands of the good guys or the bad guys? I don't know. I don't know if they've got him or if he's still protected. But it's not going to matter, because the secrets that Jeffrey Epstein's been holding close to his vest to control other people and to get money, those secrets are known to other people. I have people telling me they're going to kill me. I have people saying, well, if you're saying you got the key to the treasure trove, somebody's going to kill you. They kill everybody that they think has the information. Well, guess what? They can kill the messenger, but they can't kill the message. I want you to know right now, I want your listeners to know, I have information that could bring down some of the most powerful people in the world. But I didn't keep it to myself. If something happens to me, there's a network of people that know what to do with that information. So the truth is going to come out one way or the other. So I guess maybe in a way I got the same insurance policy that Jeffrey Epstein has, except I've got one guarantor of my life insurance policy, Almighty God. He promises me that I will never die, that I have the gift of eternal life. So I don't fear any man or any event. If you don't fear death, you're fearless. If you believe in God Almighty and his promises of eternal life, you're fearless. You'll be fearless for freedom. You'll be fearless for standing up for your rights. You'll be fearless making sure that your country remains a country where you can freely express and practice your faith. So, anybody out there listening that thinks they're going to do me in, good luck.
Lin, for the people out there that don't know this, I want people to know there is progress occurring. We have, again, Christopher C. Miller was put in as the Secretary of Defense on November 9th, folks. These are not the actions of a president who plans on leaving anytime soon. Okay, the president put in again Christopher C. Miller to be the Secretary of Defense, who then put in Ezra Cohen to be his right-hand man. Now, Ezra Cohen was mentored and taught up by General Flynn. These are real things that have happened. We have seized the servers in Frankfurt, Germany, where the votes were switched and stored. We have gone after the Solar Winds organization in Austin. We raided that facility in Austin, Texas. There are things happening. On November 30th, we brought back the use of firing squads. The Department of Justice made the firing squads now a thing. But now, Lynn, as we ask our final two questions, I have a listener here who he coaches my kids and teaches them how to flip and how to do cheerleading and all the flipping moves. Lynn, really the kid should be wearing a helmet. He's a very unsafe man. Sir, I'll let you introduce yourself to Lynn, first and last name, so he can kind of know who you are.
Hi, Lynn. It's an honor to speak with you, and thank you for all that you're doing for our country and our president. My name is Glenn Phibbs. I'm the director of South County Sports here in Tulsa. I have the honor of coaching the Clark's kids, and they're wonderful kids, very athletic, and just really good kids. So my question to you is, well, let me first state that I guess recently I'm hearing now that Mike Pence is not the person who we all thought he was. I'd like to know if you have heard, and if you have, is there any truth to these email chains that involve Paul Ryan and Mr. Pence?
I don't know any specifics about email chains, but I do know that it is a matter of documented public fact that Pence and Paul Ryan are very close. So that may be answering your question indirectly, but giving you a direct answer. I would look around at who Pence's loyalties are to. They're not going to be the people that support Donald Trump. You're finding people daily almost that claimed to be Trump people. They were using the president's popularity to advance their own agendas. And the minute they thought Trump was out of the way, or they wanted to get him out of the way, they could further their own agendas. The truth is going to be revealed about Mike Pence. I don't want to speculate on him more than what I've said as a matter of fact. There's a reason he and his wife got one of those notes. Why? What did he have in common with the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes? He certainly has in common that he got one of the notes. Maybe one day we'll learn what those notes said, but somebody gave them those notes. A Secret Service agent delivered them. I think people have falsely portrayed Donald Trump for 4 years. They tried to make you think he was a crazy man, that he was a phony genius, that he wasn't smart, that he was only out for money and fame. Everything they told you about Donald Trump is a lie. Donald Trump is a genius. Donald Trump loves God and he loves this country. When I said earlier, I'll say it again, Trump's going to trump them all. So the truth will come out. The Bible says every lie will be revealed. The Bible does not lie. Every word in the Bible is true. People have forgotten, because we're caught up in the world of the flesh, they have forgotten that we don't battle flesh. We battle powers and principalities. And we know who wins the war between good and evil. God wins it. God won it at Calvary. God is going to prevail. Good is going to prevail. And the people that are disturbed about what's going to happen to this person and what's going to happen on this day, Jesus said, focus on today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. What did he mean? He meant that tomorrow is planned. So why would you worry about something that you cannot change? God wants his children to help him, but God can do the miracles by himself. He just loves to have his people support him in his efforts. I think people are going to return to faith in this country over the next several weeks and months. I think people have been returning to faith in the past several months, because we're going to realize at the end of the day that we can have 10 million soldiers and 1,000 nuclear bombs. But unless God protects this country, those soldiers waketh in vain. Those bombs protect nobody. God is real. And I believe this country is going to know it again in the very near future. and they're going to return this country back to where it started, a nation under God.
Lin, here's the final question. This comes to you from Aaron Antis, who runs Oklahoma's largest home building company, ShawHomes.com, with his brother, Joe Antis. He wants to know how he can donate, because I know you're not taking any money on all the legal fights you're doing, Lin. You got 24/7 security, and he wants to know, how can he donate to feed your dogs? Where does he need to go directly to donate to get him that good organic, that human-grade food? Yep. And then he can ask the question, where does he need to donate if he wants to help support you, feed your dogs, or to support your 24/7 security? Because you do have security watching your house, and the dogs are part of the security, no doubt. Mm-hmm. So where can he go to donate to feed your dogs?
Well, thanks for asking. Most of the expenses I'm incurring are with investigators and IT personnel and, yes, security people. Not so much to protect me. I believe in Psalm 91 protection. But I do want to protect my dogs. I do want to protect the wonderful people that work around here with me. And if they're trying to get to me, they might be in harm's way. So if you wanted to donate, and I have not taken and have no plans to ever take a dime in my fees for my time, but I have an organization I formed earlier this year in the summer, last year now, I guess, called fightback.law. Formal name's hashtag fightback, but if you go to www.fightback.law, you'll have a chance to donate. I formed the foundation because I was concerned that we were in a color revolution and we were going to be in risk of losing our constitutional rights, and I wanted to have an organization for the future that would make sure it never happened again. Well, I quickly turned in to have him try to help Kyle Rittenhouse raise money to get that political prisoner out of jail, that young boy. And since then, I've been involved in the election fraud. So your donations are appreciated. Your prayers are appreciated even more. You can donate at that page. And I'll tell you one last little secret, because I hadn't had a chance to do anything about it in the past year. I've been tied up on other things. One day soon, I'm going to roll out to the public what I formed about a year ago. It's a 501c3 charitable charitable organization. It's called Allie's Place. That's my first rescue dog's name, Allie, A-L-L-I-E. Allie's Place, I-E, a place for all. I formed that foundation to raise money for rescue dogs.
Aaron?
I've developed since then the plan to build a chapel on my property called the Tomatley Chapel, a place for all. So when I get past the election, I hope to be able to ask people to give a donation to help the abandoned and lost puppies. To also maybe help me build a place where all can come and pay respects to the land around us and to Almighty God. I don't care about money. God has given me enough, and enough is always enough. So I really try to live my life to glorify God and to help other people. I don't worry about myself because God promises me He'll meet my needs. So I'm not trying to make myself look like a do-gooder. I'm just Lin Wood, the lawyer, but I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And He says to see the kingdom of God, you have to believe that He is the Son of God, and you have to try to live your life like He led His. You can't be perfect because only Jesus was perfect. But you do the best you can, and when you make a mistake, you ask for forgiveness, He'll forgive you. But He teaches us to look after other people, even strangers, not to worry about ourselves, put other people first. If our country returned to that belief, if we cared more about other people than we do ourselves, if we tried to dedicate ourselves to helping other people, even strangers, can you even begin to imagine what a wonderful world this would be?
Aaron, you are the man who runs the largest home building company in Oklahoma. Do you also build doghouses?
We currently are not building doghouses. It's only
Lin, whatever. He owes you big time.
So,
Once President Trump wins this thing, you expect a beautiful palace for your dogs, organic dog food to be delivered once a week. Aaron, with that being said, now that I've promised these certain things without asking you first, what question do you have for Lin Wood, sir?
Well, Lin, first of all, with everything that you were mentioning earlier with Isaac Cappy, so I went and looked at kind of his final statements. He went on an hour-long rant just before he supposedly committed suicide, where he talks about that he kind of maybe betrayed Trump, and that it sounds like, from if you're reading between the lines, it sounds like he had given a lot of information about people he knew were involved in pedophilia to Donald Trump, and that somehow he betrayed the trust of Trump. Is that what you read in his kind of last hour-long rant statement? Is that maybe he handed over some information, sort of like Jeffrey Epstein perhaps has?
I have not read that series of statements by the gentleman. I don't believe, I don't know that he's claiming to have given something to Trump that was somehow misleading to the president. I don't know that.
It seems like he gave him stuff that wasn't misleading, though. It seems it seems like he gave him information to help the Trump presidency.
But you haven't seen that yet, Lin.
Yeah.
That would be consistent with what I believe.
Yeah,
That
sounds
this
like
actor had lived a life that he wasn't proud of.
Yep.
And he found God, and he decided he wanted to try to atone for his sins.
Yep.
So he probably did what I think people of God do. They try to reveal the truth.
Yeah.
So that the wrongdoers can be identified and brought to justice.
And he says
I
in
believe
the end of
that
it
the information that he has,
yeah.
I don't know whether he gave it to President Trump or not, but I believe he had access to information that would bring some of the most powerful people in the world to justice, even the House of Windsor.
Yeah. It sounded like that in his statement that he had told Trump that he was willing to go stand in public and reveal the things that he knew, even if it meant his own death. That was what it sounded like.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah. So, very
He
interesting.
died a very mysterious death. We sure do have a lot of convenient suicides over the last several years, don't we?
Yes, we do. It's pretty wild.
Lin, I appreciate you joining us, my friend. And again, anybody out there, if you are not familiar with Lin Wood's Twitter feed, go to just do a search for Lin Wood Twitter. And I would just say there's 4 people right now everybody needs to be following on Twitter. Follow your good friend, Sidney Powell. Follow you, Lin Wood. Follow President Donald J. Trump. And also follow General Flynn. These are 4 Americans that you can trust right now. And Lin Wood, thank you for joining us for this 4th Fireside Chat. I know you're encouraging millions of people with each and every broadcast. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll work on the details of getting you that organic, human-grade dog food.
Hey, Clay, do me one favor.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you ask people to do something. Consider doing what I've asked them to do.
Yes, sir.
This Sunday, fill your churches. Standing room only. If you have to, stand outside. Wear a mask if you want to, but don't be constrained by people telling you how many people can come to your church. Fill the churches in this country this Sunday, praying that God will save our country. He will. Show the world that America is going to stand up in the churches of this country and ask God for his help.
Yes.
That'll be a show of strength that will cower every enemy that we face.
Amen, amen, and amen. If you're out there, Thrive Nation, get to church. You say, I haven't been to church since Easter. Get there. I haven't been to church since Christmas. Hey, go there this week and then try it every week. And after you keep going to enough Sundays in a row and reading the Bible often enough, eventually you may develop a relationship with Christ. And I know that's, Lin, really what you're all about. Again, Mr. Flynn, or Mr. Lin Wood, thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show. I appreciate you. You are a great American.
Thank you, Clay, very much. God bless you.
Take care. Bye. On January the 2nd, 2021, Lin Wood tweeted out, "When the President of the United States retweets a video 3 times, American patriots must watch it. Watch it carefully. The video speaks truth. Pray for our president, our country, and the brave members of our family." And so I thought it would be appropriate if we ended today's Fireside Chat with Lin Wood by showcasing the Man in America show hosted by Seth Holhouse. This is the video that President Trump has tweeted out 3 times. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. So now without any further ado, I'm playing the Man in America video that was created and has been tweeted out by the President of the United States 3 times. And the show is hosted by Seth Whole House. And once again, if you want today's show notes, just send me a text directly to 918-851-6920. I know so many of you have family and friends that are not awake to the truth yet. They haven't seen the truth. They've been deceived, and you want to share the truth with them. If you want to get that information, just text me, 918-851-6920, and I'll send it direct to you.
I'm going to level with you now. Anyone who has escaped communist China, Russia, Cuba, or North Korea can see the right. I'm going to level with you now. Anyone who has escaped communist China, Russia, Cuba, or North Korea can see the writing on the wall. In 1963, the communist goals to overthrow the United States were entered into congressional record. They stated, capture one or both of the political parties, infiltrate the press, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. After this election, it's pretty clear these goals have been achieved. And the more you look into it, the more you see that all roads lead to China, or more specifically, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Guess who owns a massive chunk of Hollywood, including AMC theaters and legendary film studios? You got it, the CCP. Guess who pays millions of dollars to mainstream newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, to publish their propaganda? The CCP. And guess who's given the Biden family billions of dollars? Yes, the CCP. Now do you see why Biden is the media's darling? On the contrary, who's been the biggest thorn in the CCP's side? Who stood up to their abusive trade policies and slapped them with billions of dollars in tariffs? Who dismantled their stranglehold on manufacturing and brought American factories and jobs back home? Who stopped the pillaging of U.S. intellectual property? Who put serious penalties in place for violating religious freedoms? And finally, who had the guts to call a spade and rightfully point a finger at the CCP for concealing a virus that has crippled our entire world? President Trump. Now do you understand why they hate him so much? They've been coming after America, coming after you and I for decades, and their plan was basically complete. That is, until President Trump got in their way. Right now, we're in a battle for our republic. The enemy is already inside the gates. Even those we thought we could trust have turned on us. They're not fighting with guns and bombs, no, but with words, ideas, and narratives. Because what they're fighting for are our minds. In 1956, communist leader Khrushchev said, "We will take America without firing a shot. We do not have to invade the U.S. We will destroy you from within." I hope you can see now that the invisible enemy is communism, and the most deadly virus is the Chinese Communist Party. It sneaks into a country through the vices of corrupt politicians, businessmen, and people with power and influence. It rips through cities and towns, bodies and minds, leaving no stone unturned, no soul untouched, and a trail of death and destruction in its wake. It sows its seeds by convincing us that lies are truth, evil is good, and hatred is love, that division is unity, and that our enemies are each other. Man versus woman, rich versus poor, black versus white, left versus right. It takes root when we feel helpless, afraid, and alone. It erases our history and slanders our forefathers, and teaches our children to hate themselves, their families, and their country. It ridicules our beliefs, undermines our values, and attacks our way of life. It even demands that we kneel down in shame. But we will not be ashamed. It can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore, because we know who we are. We fought to escape tyranny. We bled to end slavery. We revere the brave men who died to secure our freedom. We welcome people of all races and religions. We love our neighbors. We help the poor. We cherish our families. We work hard for what we have. We unite in times of hardship. We know good from evil and truth from lies. And we know that our rights don't come from the government, but from God. And we will fight to the death to protect those rights. The time ahead is critical. We, the people, need to call upon our president to defend us from enemies, foreign and domestic, and uphold his oath. For the time being, we still have free press and free speech at our fingertips. But if we don't grab hold of them now, we'll lose them forever. Independent, honest media companies like OAN, Newsmax, and the Epoch Times will guide us out of the darkness, while mainstream media will only drag us further down. It's time to stop giving them our money, our attention, and our minds. Unlike their Facebook pages, unsubscribe from their emails, unfollow them on Twitter, delete their apps, and stop visiting their websites. Support the countless patriots who've gone through hell and high water to get this information to you. Like their content, subscribe to their channels, share their videos, spread their message. Stop using Google search. Google is censoring every result and robbing you of your right to know the facts. Start using DuckDuckGo and compare them. You'll be shocked. Get off Twitter and Facebook and switch to Parler. Join millions of patriots who have already turned their backs on these toxic companies who dare silence our voices. Join the millions of patriots who are standing up and rallying across the country, demanding justice and rejecting communism. Our enemies snuck in during the night and tried to use the media to lull us to sleep while they stole our country. But instead, they awoke the sleeping giant. We see them for who they are now. And they'll never be able to fool us again. They tried to trigger a great reset, but instead, they triggered a great awakening. We will not look back 5 years from now and tell our children that we did nothing as our nation was stolen. We will tell them that we fought for and won our freedom just like our forefathers in 1776. America is the last bastion of freedom in the world. We are the only remaining threat to the CCP virus. If we fall, the world will fall. But we will not fall. It's time to stand with our founding fathers and to invoke the power of we the people and the power of God. We are the patriots.